Hey there, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me. It's 5 o'clock here in the United States, and I'm excited to get this class on innovation off the ground and underway. I will get some things going for you here as I switch over back to my camera. Thanks so much for having me as part of your learning. It's always exciting to meet new people and to get folks involved in understanding of innovation, because it truly can transform how businesses, how teams, and specifically how individuals can start to see what their contribution is to innovative ideas, as well as to things that might bring about other people's innovation. The good news about innovation is we can always start with the basic concepts. And I want to do that with you in this first talk here that I have for you. In the first talk, it's really going to center around some of the basic concepts of what innovation is all about. And I'm going to cover it pretty thoroughly, but at the same time, there's going to be a lot of information there. So you're welcome to go back and look at these various different presentations at different times to get a sense of which ones you want to spend time on. I'll also spend a little time making sure that I break these apart into smaller sections in future trainings or in future components. Right now, this is great because folks who haven't enrolled in the course right now do get a chance to see this first overview that I'm going to talk about. What is innovation and how do we utilize innovation for the future whenever we're talking about the various components of our work environment. And so what I want to do is I just want to dive into that. And give you that information, because I feel like one of the ways that people start to understand innovation is when they get some sense of what that means for them particularly. And it can mean a bunch of different things, actually. It can mean that you are focused on coming up with a new idea. It can also mean that you are helping other people come up with ideas. And sometimes it can be as simple as you working with other people in an effective way. We sometimes can discover that our own predisposition, our own particular perspective of innovation is actually not developed enough that we can bring something to the table. So what I want to talk to you about is just some of the definitions that folks have for innovation out there. Nick Skillicorn is one of the gentlemen that has come up with all kinds of material around innovation. And I'm going to be referencing some very current examples of innovation and what they are doing. And I'm going to be also going to be referencing all kinds of other types of resources throughout this lecture. It's very important to remember that our goal in working in innovation is to highlight the components that bring the most value. So as you can see here, I called out those two words, adds value. And remember, adding value always means based on what the customer sees as valuable. So we live in a world where things are created based on different people's perspectives. So if I see that a new type of mouse for my computer will allow me to click faster and not get carpal tunnel in my hand, then the customer's perspective of their issue with carpal tunnel and solving that problem is what creates the value. Now, we work in all kinds of different groups. We work in all kinds of different situations. I do a lot of training in hospitals. I do a lot of training in tech companies, startups, and these different sessions that I do run are built around this idea that we can build value based on the customer's perspective. So for the next 10 days, that's really what I want to give you is that perspective. You're going to have at least 6 lectures live with me, and then some other live chats that we'll arrange to have available throughout this course. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is another definition, which is the application of ideas that are useful and novel. So this idea of what is a novel idea, how do we make it more novel? David Burkus is one of those gentlemen who works in the space of innovation as well, and he had this definition. Now remember, the reason why people come up with different definitions for innovation is they're trying to make it more approachable for you. I want to do that too, but I also want to make sure you walk out of this class really understanding what innovation is. It's perfectly fine that you have a very simple definition like this, but you need to know how to apply that simple definition to specific situations. Staying relevant is what Steven Shapiro has said. Staying relevant. The cassette tape is coming back as a different technique of showing off audio. People are doing it because it seems like a cool thing to do right now, but evidently, obviously, your phone and MP3s are the future of audio. And that's always going to be the case going forward until something new comes along that makes it even more accessible for people. And here's Paul's definition. Paul Hubcraft, I read his work quite often. The fundamental way that company brings constant value to their customers' business or life, and consequently their shareholders and stakeholders. Now, when you're talking about a customer's life, the shareholders can be people who they're married to, people who they're in long-term business relationships with, but it can be all kinds of things. And that's an important thing to call out. Notice we're back to that concept of value. And how do you bring constant value to your customer all the time? Starbucks does a great job with it every morning. They serve great coffee at all of their locations. Customers walk out of there satisfied. And they might even come back multiple times in a day. So it's that kind of value that you need to look to provide. And this innovation process and the different techniques and definitions we go over will start to lay the foundation for that. I don't want you to get wrapped up too much in this lecture style. I'll have an activity at the very end of it this evening that you guys can do. And then tomorrow, you'll get more materials posted up that will go live. So that presentation really was all about giving you the insights into what is innovation from a general definition perspective. And that, for me, is a way for you to consider, what do you want from this? What do you want to create more value around? And I'm going to be asking you that in a bunch of different ways throughout this course. What do you want to create value around? And then, how do you create value around that thing? Defining if it's a personal thing, how do you define those values that you want to build? What do you choose to build the value around? And then if you're running a business, like most of you guys are working in departments and divisions and you're working in various places, you're actually trying to, really hard, you're trying to pinpoint who is your customer, who is that business, and how can we get them the most value based on the type of services that we provide. In this class, I want you to remember, no matter what, no matter where we go, no matter what we're talking about, your main objective with any of these different tools that I'm going to teach you is to pinpoint that value in your customer's head or in your own head. I will walk you through a bunch of different ways for you to do that. And you'll be able to take those out and apply them directly into your life right away. So let me share with you another example of our work here and what we've got available for you guys to think about. There's so much in this space as far as our considerations about the innovation in our work environment, in our work life, in the different places that we have. And so here, I like to break it down into different components. So the 4 divisions of innovation, those are I put them down as D's. So there are 4 D's. And they include definitions, the dimensions of innovation, the drivers of innovation, and then the developments of what innovation means. When we see what is innovation, here's some more definitions for you. These start to get a little more specific into a way of thinking about prototyping, a way of thinking about products. And that's perfectly fine too. Whether you're using this for personal reasons or for work reasons, it's going to work for you. So innovation is the process and outcome of creating something new, which is also of value. We're back to that value piece. Now, innovation is the whole components, and we're going to talk about the whole process. We're going to talk about different processes for innovation. When we talk about opportunity identification, that definition that I just spoke about a few minutes ago, where it said you got to find something that other people are going to find valuable, or that you're going to find valuable enough that you want to do something about it. So that's the opportunity identification. Ideation and invention processes are the next piece. So once you've figured out, okay, people want something in this area, let's develop a service. Let's develop a product. Once you've got that, we've gone away from prototyping super exact things before we move forward. So what that means is, with Lean and some of the other things that I'll introduce in this innovation course, prototyping is done very quickly. So when I prototype something, I'm not making the perfect version of that service or that product. I'm making a version of that product that's going to test to see whether my customer really does want that thing. Did I truly identify an opportunity? Production marketing is the next piece, and then the pushing out of sales of those actual items is also part of it. And now, Schumpeter is, he's a theorist around innovation. He's an academic, and he's worked in the innovation space for many decades. He's one of the people that pioneered this concept of innovation and bringing it into companies in a standardized way. So his way of thinking about things really goes back to the old style of thinking about innovation. And I want you to remember that with some of the things that we're going to talk about here. Today, we have to really think about the ability to quickly change and adapt with new products, processes, strategies, organizations. It is absolutely essential that an organization that is being created now not only think about the products and services that they're doing, but what are the different processes that they've put into place that allow them to adapt and change, maybe on a quarterly basis, maybe on a monthly basis, maybe on a yearly basis, but these have to constantly be changing. The time and place, like it was in the 90s, 80s, 70s, prior to the 90s, when the internet happened and all these things started transitioning in technology, you might even say prior to the mid-2000, like 2005, you could even say. So these products and services and strategies were evolving quickly, but they weren't evolving that quickly. Only certain cultures and certain organizations were able to implement this. Now, the standard is such that if we don't think about these things constantly, someone else is going to come up with the same product better processes, better strategies, and better organizations, and they're going to destroy established businesses. You saw this happen over the course of several years with companies like Uber. Uber has exactly the same product as taxi, any other shuttle service that you've got out there. But they could develop processes and strategies of getting it out there that disrupted the whole way that taxis are done. So when you think of these traditional ways of going about innovation, it has to change. There has to be a giant change. The focus has been on new products and processes, but recently, new business models are starting to come about. And that's just because the internet is everywhere, and people are using it to come up with better ways, faster ways, more responsive ways of interacting with their customers. The value gets higher and higher because if I can push a button on my phone and be in the middle of someplace unknown to me in the city, and within 10 minutes have a car in front of me and not have to wait or walk a block in a certain direction and hope to find a taxi, that creates so much more value. And it also secures those profits. So Schumpeter argued that innovation comes about through new combinations made by an entrepreneur, resulting in either a new product, a new process, opening a new market, a new way of organizing business, or new sources of supply. And those are some of the things that we've seen happen. You can be an entrepreneur within a company that's already hired you when you're looking for new processes, new markets, new ways of organizing the business, new sources of supply. You can even create new products inside of an existing business that you're working for, depending on the level inside the company that you're at. But I have to say, it's much easier to do those bottom four than it is to create a new product if you're not charged to create a new product or service. So just think about that. We'll be going over that stuff throughout this course today, over the next few days. When we think about the dimensions of innovation, there are several types of innovation out there, several ways that we think about this innovation process. And when we think about that innovation, I want you to consider, just for a moment, I want you to consider, when you're thinking about these dimensions and the several types of innovation out there, consider that the process that we spoke about before is such an interesting and valuable thing that anyone can bring to the table in any business. The strategy, the way that you put the pieces together, whether it's the business or whether it's the marketing, the strategy is another way that you can create innovation. You can also look at this concept of incremental versus radical changes, continuous versus staggered or discontinuous innovation. So one way is you can constantly be upgrading. A friend of mine was talking to me about Facebook and says, every few hours on Facebook, they dump in updates to the way that the Facebook application works, the way that the backend works, the way that the advertising shows up for you, the way that the photos are cached, the way all that stuff is done is constantly being updated. So theirs then is a continuous innovation, or thinking about new ways that Facebook can interact with its customer, new ways that we can pull content in and make that content readily accessible. So when you think about these pieces, just remember that. Just remember that you have at your fingertips ways for you to make change, bring innovation to the table. And you have to find the receptive people that are going to take that information. Some of the drivers of innovation, which all of us have felt them, and different situations when you've worked in companies where innovations have happened. Financial pressures, people come in all the time saying, oh, well, we need to cut here, or we need to change this, or we need to do this, we need to cut cost, increase efficiency. Everyone who's worked in a company has probably seen that happen. So that's very common. Most people don't think of that as innovation, but it is. Another way that can drive innovation is your competition comes along with something better. If your production life cycles can be reduced, if you can produce something faster and make those product life cycles faster, then that might require that you innovate. Regulations have a big impact on innovation. Some companies and some countries have stricter regulations than others. I'd love for you guys to chat with me in the comment section and other places about how, what strict regulations are like in your country. What regulations do you think drive innovation in your country? Industry and community needs for sustainable development. There's all kinds of ways now when you're thinking about how do you make sustainable development happen for a community. More jobs, higher pay for people, more opportunities for folks. These are all ways that innovation is now starting to happen. We're going to talk about something called social innovation, which is where you create a product or service that solves a social problem. That's a type of sustainable development. There's also demographic things that happen, social and market changes that happen. These are all things that come along that make it more difficult. The expectations regarding what the customer wants. You have people now that are downloading apps and they realize, oh, wow, I can get delivery from an app. I don't have to get on the phone and talk to somebody and they get my order wrong. I can put it into the app. It comes to me. I can schedule it ahead of time. All these things are now changing and making things more convenient. So those are some of the drivers for innovation. Another innovator in theory argued, Gary Hamel, he said that today's marketplace is hostile to incumbents. That means that people who have had the market, who were the leaders, are now looked at with a lot more questions. Why aren't you moving faster? Why aren't you changing? You have the resources. You have more money. You have more market share. You should change now. You should be more responsive. And that's making them radically reconceive what it means to create products and services. Redefining that market space. How do you redefine it so that you can take advantage of it? And then the industry boundaries are shifting all the time now. Whether it's healthcare, looking more specifically at food, or whether it's clothing, looking more specifically at recycled goods, because they know if they can get recycled goods together, then they'll be able to create more sustainably manufactured clothing, and that will give them a better market share. So industry boundaries from all different sides are starting to change, shift, evolve. New conditions for innovation. When you think about those startups, we're seeing how they work so much more closely now with some larger firms. They might service a very specific component of those larger firms' customer service needs. That's a fantastic thing. If you look at tech companies now, it's actually a badge of honor for all these tech companies that are providing software as a service, just as an example. So software as a service is like Gmail, right? Back in the day, companies used to host their own servers and have their own email and do their own email provision, have their own email technology in-house. Well, not anymore. Now people are starting to use the Google services and getting access to more on-demand type services like that. There's so many examples of that. I want to do a webinar where I talk about those because it gives you an idea of the potential of technology in transforming what we think of as far as connecting to it. People think large firms aren't going to jump in, but they are. They're looking for better ways to market to their customers. They're looking for better ways to connect with customer service, better ways to provide infrastructure support. Big companies are funding these startups. Why? Because guess what? One of them might become a unicorn, as they're loved to be called, where over the course of several years, a company goes from being valued as a couple of $1,000s to being valued a couple $1 billion. So those are the unicorns. And venture finance is one way that those big companies can then get return on their funds that they have out there. Those big companies have war chests of cash that they want to invest. They can also see different ways that you can exit the opportunity of being a startup. So that small company, small entrepreneur, might be looking to be bought by a giant company like Cisco, or a giant company like McDonald's, or a huge company like, go down the list, an Uber even. Like an Uber might want to buy another company. It's only a matter of time. Facebook has been buying other companies. Microsoft has been buying other companies. To know what's going on. The startups, when they do connect with those large firms, actually provide better knowledge to those large firms because they get to feed off of the innovation, feed off of the things that are happening up. And the startups are also showing those big firms the new markets where the big firms can then step into them. So you see how these are quite different? When you think about large firms increasingly depend on small startups, we'll talk about MPD in a little while, but they also depend on small startups for suppliers of new knowledge. They don't necessarily have the resources to go in every direction, whereas a tiny startup has the resources to perhaps come up with a brand new way of doing marketing analysis. Organizational renewal for experimentation with business models. You have all these ways of connecting back to the material. And the big companies really are starting to depend on that. So the startup world is actually helping. New developments in innovation raises new issues and problems. We have these new technologies coming down the pipeline. We have new activities that are driving at innovation. I work at a couple of universities here in New York City. Run and coordinate a degree program here, which is what I call practical entrepreneurship. Like how do you not just study about entrepreneurship, but actually practically do it in a 2-year program. So there are all these ways now that academics are pushing the boundaries of what entrepreneurship can mean to people. If I'm a student and I have an idea, how long can it take if they start in our program before they can actually launch their business? What kind of nurturing environment can we create? How do we build these sorts of scientific discoveries to drive what we're doing? And universities have been great about it, but even they have to start moving more quickly. It's only a matter of time till the folks who are working at startups realize that either universities are too slow in doing what they need to do, too slow in getting them information that they need, too slow in building the partnerships that they're looking for. It's only a matter of time. Everyone is now working harder, and that's what this class is about. How do we develop a fluid and comfortable way of innovating? Increased search for radical innovation and top-line growth. Radical innovation comes about, of course, when people come up with brand new ideas that just sort of blow the socks off everyone else. So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about then, when you're looking at this, that bit of information that I covered with you, you can see that there's a huge amount of potential for you to work within the innovation space. What are the tools? What are the pieces that really make for an innovative team, for an innovative division, department? How can you make those pieces work more finely? There's some great platforms out there that I'll cover in some future webinars as well, where we talk about this platform does this and this platform does that, and that's what open innovation means. What I want you to take away from this class, though, is I want you to have a foundational understanding of what innovation can do for you. Not just, oh, well, here's a platform, and it's like a new piece of software I have to that I need to know for my work. No. This is much bigger than that. It's not just a piece of software that you work on. It's part of your brainware. It's part of what you put up here that's going to make you forever employable, I like to say. So that's where we're going. That's where I want to take you. I want to help you get to that place. I want you to understand what it means to be forever employable, and an innovation and an entrepreneurship mindset will help you get there. So this first course on innovation is going to dig into those pieces. Going to talk about the various different tools that you have at your disposal when it comes to innovation. What I want to show you guys as my last little piece here, I just want to give you a quick little assignment, if you don't mind. Do a quick little assignment for you. I'm going to pop it up for you right here. People often ask me about what's the difference between an inventor and an innovator, right? And we'll go over this in a future lecture here, but I just want to bring this up for you so you have an assignment for me, for us to work on together in this next section. So here it is. Inventors are folks like Thomas Edison, Benjamin Franklin, Eli Whitney, Alexander Graham. And there's tons of women, of course, who have been amazing inventors. I'm not sure why the list that we have here is based off of some information that was drawn on the examples in a previous presentation. But I want you to think about innovators. Who are the innovators out there? Based on the presentation that I just gave, in the comment section there in the course, if you click inside the course now, you can actually see there's a place for you to add your comments. I'd love for you to just throw in a couple of people that you think are innovators. What's the difference between an innovator and those inventors? Because inventors are interesting. They do something very interesting. And innovators do something else. I'm going to draw that distinction for you, leave you with that cliffhanger, but come up with it. See what you think, who you think innovators are, and then we will get back together again. I'll do a brief lecture tomorrow live. I'll do a longer lecture on Wednesday live. And of course, I'll be posting tons of information and things up this week too. Thanks so much for joining me. It's been amazing to have you here. Check the course out, look at the other components of the outline, and I look forward to joining with you in your learning. I'm always available to you here on my website at idealu.today. Check it out. Thanks again. Have an awesome one.